Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. We're going to get into baseball first, guys. You have to talk about the Fall Classic. Maybe two teams that we didn't expect to be in it. We know the Rangers did spend some money in the offseason, went out and got DeGrom. But you think about the Rangers, last November, 60-1. And in August, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Jay, 90-1. So all these teams that really had these high-priced free agents. I know Texas had some. You talk about, the Yankees and the Padres and the Dodgers and the Braves with their lineup. They're not playing in the Fall Classic. It's D-backs, Rangers. Rangers are a $1.75 favorite in the series. Should be an interesting one as the Rangers really have become road warriors. I believe they won every road playoff game so far, and they were the worst of the teams heading into the postseason on the road. They were a game below 500. So maybe two teams that most people didn't expect, but it's Rangers, D-backs, first pitch Friday night.
Yeah, and when you talk about both these teams, they kind of had Rangers came out of the box quickly, put a bunch of wins, had a good division
early,
lead.
Right.
Then we saw Seattle and Houston kind of track them down, and there was a battle at the end of the season to win that division. They didn't play super well down the stretch, kind of middle of the season. Their big acquisition was obviously getting Montgomery from the Cardinals,
right,
who's been absolutely fantastic for them in the playoffs. And really, it's the Montgomery-Eovaldi 1-2 combination that's led them through the playoffs. And finally, we saw Scherzer come in as their third pitcher, have a clunker in his first appearance out there, but able to pitch 3 solid innings in this closeout game. And so if he can find himself, he could be a separator that puts them over the hump against the Diamondbacks.
And Haney, too, has a lot of strikeouts when he's on.
Haney pitched that
right.
Game 4 against the Astros and really underperformed, so I don't know if they're going to go back to Haney in a Game 4 situation,
right,
whether it'll be a Dunning or possibly a Perez. But when you look at Game 4, outside of, again, Montgomery, Eovaldi, Scherzer versus Gallen, Kelly, and Fott, the Diamondbacks against the Phillies in their Game 4 started Joe Mantiply,
right,
and it was completely a bullpen game with guys pitching 1 or 2 innings. So when we look at that Game 4 matchup, but potentially the Rangers do have the advantage that they should have a pitcher that should be able to give them a little bit of distance
right,
versus a pure bullpen game. But the acquisitions for these teams have been absolutely fantastic. We talked about Montgomery and what the leader he's been at the top of that staff, and really the big acquisition for the Diamondbacks was getting Paul Sewald on the back end,
right,
who's been their closer throughout this playoffs. That was kind of their Achilles heel throughout the season of not having somebody that could finish out the ball games, and Sewald's been absolutely fantastic. And obviously, we're talking about these two teams for a reason heading into the World Series. They're hot. I mean, the bats
Red
are hot.
hot.
They're hitting the baseball. We're watching the offenses for both these teams, getting guys just coming up in big spots, getting big hits.
Garcia, is he fun to watch or
amazing.
What? Right.
They're getting Josh Jung has been absolutely fantastic. Jonah Heim, the young kids for the Rangers have been great. Evan Carter comes out of nowhere, playing absolutely fantastic.
Both teams got relatively healthy, though, at the right time as well.
But Marte, Carroll, Walker, I mean, there's some star power. There's some real home run power. I think it's going to be a really good series. But we talked about the Rangers being a $1.75 favorite, and I think that's most likely because of the pitching matchups that we're going to see, especially in games 3 and 4. If Max Scherzer can be more Max Scherzer-like, and then I think there is a Game 4 advantage to the Rangers over a bullpen game for the Diamondbacks.
And the Rangers were so dominant, as you mentioned, early in the season, especially at home, and we even talked about that. If they make the postseason and advance somewhat, having home field advantage for them is going to be big because the amount of runs they score at home. But they weren't a good road team. Again, I think they were 1 game below 500. But the way they've played on the road right now, and you always look for a team in any sport. If you can win on the road and you're dominant at home, it's awfully tough for an opponent to beat you.
Well, this Diamondback team, I don't think that they're going into it looking at home road matchups. They were able to go to the Dodgers and beat
right,
the Dodgers. They were able to go to the Phillies, one of the toughest places to play. So they're not intimidated. And one of the reasons why you're getting these incredible prices that we're talking about, 90-1 on the Diamondbacks, 60-1 on the Rangers. We don't see the top teams. The Braves won 104 games.
Right.
We saw the Orioles win 101 games. Tampa 99.
Means nothing.
The Dodgers, and now we see an 84-win team and a 90-win team going to be throwing their first pitches in the World Series. So I know a lot of people are saying this will be the least watched World Series. I know here in Nevada that's not going to be true because when you can bet on these games, regardless of who's playing, you've got a cheering and a rooting interest by putting a couple bucks down on the game.
And a lot of cool props on the app as well.
Props are going to be loaded. Get on the app. That prop page will be absolutely gigantic.
You can tie that into so many other things that are going on. So again, first pitch World Series, D-backs Rangers Friday night. All right, now it's time to dive into some college football. I know we've got some kind of interesting stats here before we get into the regular games.
Yeah,
let's talk about these a little bit.
I went out to the graphics department, and we pulled up.
It's a very high-priced graphics department.
What I wanted to show, because college football has been a little bit of rough sledding. We'll say pro football has been a little bit of rough sledding. But the amount of outright underdog winners, I'm not talking about teams covering the point spread. I'm talking about underdogs of over 7 points where you're getting plus 200 or more on them winning a game outright. And when you look through what I put together here, we talk about the multiple teams that are 7-point underdogs or more that are winning games straight up. And so it happens every single week in college football. And you can see in week 1, 5 times, week 2, 4 times, week 3, 4 times, 4 times, 3 times, 5 times. Week 7 is on the other side. I'll show it when I flip it to you. But there's actually 5 times in week 7 and another 4 times in week 8. But we're talking about monster prices here. A 26-point underdog that wins outright in Texas State in week 1. We all remember week 1 when Colorado pulled the outright upset at TCU as a 6-1 dog. And you look each week at these teams that are winning the games as huge underdogs.
You're not talking about just covering. You're talking about winning outright.
Yeah, there's a plethora of other games where you have teams that are 20-point underdogs that are losing by 14 or a touchdown. These are teams that are actually winning on the money line where you're getting paid 11 to 1, 3 to 1, 3.5 to 1. 12-point underdog.
Almost 10 to 1.
Yeah, this is the kneel down game where Miami fails to kneel down at the end of the game and Georgia Tech's able to steal that one for them. But my point is if you're betting the favorites, if you're asking yourself when you look at the sheet every week or you look at the app every week and you say, what are the favorites that are going to win, and you're not having success doing that, take a look and switch your philosophy to say, what are the favorites that are going to lose? Who are the underdogs that are going to win? Because There's obviously money to be made on betting the dogs. So when we look, and we'll call it week 9 of the college football slate this week, when you look at that college football on the app, ask yourself, who are the over a touchdown underdogs that have a chance to win the game outright? And you don't even have to bet them on the money line. You could take them plus those 7 points or more. But that should be your strategy. Again, another one here. A 24-point underdog in Virginia that wins outright. We've seen Nevada as a 13.5-point underdog win their very first game in over a year. And it's not just college football. It's happening in the pros as well. We look at pro football, again, not as long of a list.
But still surprising, some of these upsets.
Yeah, and remember, pro football doesn't have as many games where we see over 7-point favorites. So, week 4, there was no winner. There was only 4 games where we had teams that were 7 points or more. But again, you look at the prices and you talk about the teams that are struggling to cover or why people are struggling to win their bets, because of these things. We'll go kind of in reverse here. But obviously the Patriots beating the Bills last week, and then Monday night the Vikings able to knock off the Niners. These are things, when you look at it, you don't expect these big monster upsets to happen. We didn't expect the Browns.
You may expect them to cover, but just not win outright.
To win outright. But again, the Browns playing with starting P.J. Walker, able to knock off the Niners last week. The Jets go out and knock off the undefeated Eagles. We saw the Bears on a Thursday night beat the Commanders. The Jaguars in London beat the Bills. Everybody remembers, especially of you that play that Survivor, you remember the Cardinals knocking off the Cowboys as a 13-point underdog in week 3. And the week 3 was an absolutely amazing week as the Texans almost a 10-point dog to the Jaguars outright. Colts an 8-point dog to the Ravens. So you see what I'm going through here, and what I'm trying to express to you to help you in your handicap is you don't always have to bet favorites. The dogs are live. They're live every week. Take your shots. Pick some underdogs. Good luck.
Our mascot was Teaser, but I think we're going to change it to Underdog. He'll be joining us on the set one of these weeks very soon.
So that you can see the amount of college football.
All right, let's jump into college football this week. There's some good games that we want to jump on. So you have number 6, Oklahoma, at Kansas. This game you might look at and say, is this an upset alert? Or maybe you take the points, maybe the dog can win outright. Oklahoma is a 10-point favorite. Oklahoma's 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games when playing on the road against Kansas. But kind of an interesting stat here with the points. Kansas is 5-1 against the number in its last 6 games when playing at home against Oklahoma. So maybe some value there with Kansas getting 2 scores.
Well, we almost saw it last week. Oklahoma as a 17-point favorite at home against Central Florida, and they end up winning that game
Really
by
tough
three,
game, right.
really late. The one thing that Oklahoma does have going for it, and we've constantly been talking about the sleepers and things going on with the Heisman Trophy, is that Dylan Gabriel is starting to skyrocket himself up that Heisman Trophy potential with the fact that Williams has struggled with UFC, and we saw Penix kind of throw a clunker in there for Washington. So I think that Oklahoma wants to continue to score. Kansas doesn't have that defense that should really stop Oklahoma. In order for Kansas to stay in this game, they're going to have to put points on the board.
So again, they're a 10-point favorite here, but Kansas has had a lot of success against the number when playing Oklahoma at home. Number 8, Oregon at number 13, Utah. Oregon's a 6.5-point road favorite. We saw Utah beat Southern Cal last week, upset them. We don't have a prop up on Will Cameron Rising start or not. That boat has sailed. He's not playing. Oregon is 7-2 straight up in its last 9 games on the road. Utah is 19-1 straight up in its last 20 games at home, and they're getting 6.5 points here. They are definitely a tough team to beat when you have to go up and play in Utah against the Utes.
This should be one that I think that you're looking and asking yourself, can the Utes continue this underdog role? We saw them as a 7-point underdog win at USC last week in a tightly contested ball game. They're going home, playing in Utah. Obviously, we talk about no Cameron Rising, but this Utah team...
But let me interject. On this game, we opened at 6.5. It quickly was bet up to 7, but since then it's been a take. So I think there's tremendous value on Utah at home being basically the same number as they were on the road at Southern Cal.
Yeah, the speed in this game will be a little bit of a variation. Obviously, Oregon's receivers and for the ability for Bo Nix to run the football. If they're not able to not turn the football over, they should be in a good spot to win this game. But Utah... It's been a magical season for them and kind of the upsets that they pulled, and obviously off the big win at USC, and now they're looking for bigger and better things with the potential to win that Pac-12. And this is obviously a game that they have circled on their schedule as a home, obviously with the ability to beat a big team like Oregon.
I think one of the differences too is on defense, where Southern Cal, we knew going into the season that their defense was somewhat of an Achilles heel, and that they've shown that against a lot of lesser teams. And you look at Oregon, I think they're 6th in the country in what they give up per pass play. And so I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for Utah to move the ball against Oregon opposed to what it was against Southern Cal.
Yeah, we might not see the high-scoring Pac-12 in this game, as these teams, the defenses should be able to shine bright here.
Another game with top 20 teams, number 20 Duke at number 18 Louisville. Louisville's 4-46. Louisville, remember a few weeks ago, really beat up on Notre Dame. The total has gone over in 5 of Duke's last 5 games on the road. So 5 for 5, a lot of points scored. Duke is 7-2 straight up in its last 9 games. Louisville, 5-0 against the number and 5-0 straight up in their last 5 home games. So looking at these stats, something has to give here, as both teams have had success against the number based on the road or at home. And again, Louisville is a 4-point favorite with a high total of 46.
Well, when we talk Duke, you have to talk about one guy, and that's Riley Leonard, their quarterback. He's still questionable for this game. We saw him leave against Florida State last week.
Big difference
Duke
maker.
was in the game with Florida State, looked like a live team, looked like a live dog. He leaves the game, and then we watch Florida State actually dominate from their point out. So, again, if you're looking to play Duke, if you're looking to play the total, got to find out Riley Leonard's status in this game.
Yeah, and he's a big part of it. You can just see the difference when he's not on the field for this team. But really good game. If he does play, I think it's a great matchup. We're going to finish the college slate with UNLV football. We've touched on UNLV the last couple of weeks. First time they didn't cover was last week. You guys continue to back them. Good game for our side of the counter. UNLV, probably their toughest game outside of the Michigan game. This game's come down, though. Fresno State opened up a 9-point favorite. It's now 7.5. UNLV is 6-1 against the number. Only loss so far against the number was last week against Colorado State, and they're getting 7.5 points here. But you guys have already started to back them as this number has dropped 1.5 points.
Yeah, no, we saw them as
the bowl-eligible Rebels, I should say.
As a big favorite last week. And Colorado State was able to hang in that game, able to run the football, able to play solid defense and get some turnovers, some big field goals by the big UNLV, by the kicker.
Especially late in the game. Congratulations being bowl eligible.
Pun intended. But this is obviously a monster matchup going against the class of the Mountain West and Fresno State, and so a tough challenge to travel up there and hang in this game.
I think, when you look at the back end of their schedule, it's much tougher as far as conference play goes. But if you're the Rebels, you're 6-1. You weren't embarrassed when you played Michigan, knowing the difference, especially of the size. in the trenches. When you had a big game against Colorado State, the number was inflated a bit. You still were able to come back and score in the last 20 seconds to win. Now that you're bowl eligible and you've really kind of accomplished something, I think you can be a lot looser going into this back end of the schedule against some of the tougher teams in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I don't think there's pressure on them, especially with the fact that they're bowl eligible, and nobody expected this team to be in this situation. And obviously, they've done a fantastic job, and all that matters is winning games. Doesn't matter how ugly it is. Putting those W's up has been absolutely incredible for the Rebels, and I'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Nevada Wolfpack, the other team up north, being able to get their first win 6-0 against San Diego State at San Diego State. So a big win for the Wolfpack, and hopefully we can start to see them turn the tide as well and be able to put some wins up there in Reno.
Last thing for the college segment, just talking about last man standing. There are 32 lucky contestants left in the college last man standing. Really seeing those numbers kind of plummet each week. Usually it goes till about Thanksgiving or so, but only 32 left. So congratulations, you lucky 32. Good luck this weekend. We're going to be right back with the pro football segment on the Sports Betting Podcast, Bookends, powered by STN Sports.
Guess what? It's football season, baby. And you know what that means. It's time to bet your buns off. And when it comes to sports betting, you better bet with the STN Sports app. I'm talking football, all the fights, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer ball. We've got it all. And with our 14 convenient sign-up locations around town, it's no wonder they call me the Queen of Convenience. Because when I bet with STN, I feel like royalty. So what in the heck are you waiting for? Download the STN Sports app today and trust the local favorite.
Hey everybody, we're back at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. Jason Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast, Bookends. We're going to dive into pro football for this week. We're going to start on Thursday Night Football. Bucks and Bills, maybe two teams that have kind of been underachievers a little bit this year. I think you look at the Bucks, they come off that loss against the Falcons, really couldn't generate anything offensively. But you look at the Bills, they've been, they're one of the teams that everybody thought was going to be a Super Bowl contender. And I still think they are, but they're 4-3. If the Giants don't completely mess up before the first half and not throw the ball instead of running the ball, they probably lose that game, and they're 3-4 right now. They've been really slow starters. Josh Allen continues to turn the ball over a little bit, but I think there's a lot of pressure on him. He's not running as much. He's kind of changed his style of play, but defensively, no Tre'Davious White, no Matt Milano. I don't know if that Oliver will be back or not, but when you take such a big percentage of your stud defensive guys out of the mix, I think it's really affected this team. They're over a touchdown favorite here. They need to start winning because we know how good the Dolphins are. The Jets are 3-3. A lot of teams in the AFC are playing really well. In the AFC North right now, all teams are 500 or better. This is kind of a big game at home for Buffalo to start turning that offense around.
Yeah, and I look at this and we talk about this Bills team showing up on as the big favorites being knocked off a couple of weeks. That they've struggled. They've been a team that is a play against and have been shocked a couple times by big underdogs, and it would be another one here for the Buccaneers to knock them off. You mentioned it, the Bills' struggles from a health standpoint. Their defense has been absolutely decimated. They haven't been able to kind of recover from that. Teams have been able to move the football on them and keep them in the games. But what the big surprise is, you talked about the Josh Allen. We obviously know Stephon Diggs continues to put his yards up every week. We see Gabe Davis sprinkled in there. We've seen James Cook sprinkled in there, and they've had some good offensive performances.
One more thing, with Dawson Knox hurt, Dalton Kincaid is going to be starting this week and should get a lot of action on Thursday night.
They've had some big misses from their kicker Bass, and we obviously talk about the turnovers. Josh Allen, who this is not something new to him.
Right.
He's not been immune to the turnovers. This has been something that we've seen as a part of his career, that he does throw several of those bad interceptions. Has a propensity to
especially
to
in the
do
red
so.
zone.
Yeah,
where he's been bad.
But the Buccaneers have really been a team that I can't put my finger on right now. Mayfield in this offense has really struggled. We expected to see a lot more of Rashard White, both out of the backfield, catching the ball and running the ball. We see Evans dropping passes that we don't normally see. Godwin has been, good underneath, but again, he's dropped balls, and they haven't consistently found it with them. And then really bad loss last week at home to the Falcons in a game that they turned the ball over twice in the red zone, really don't put up any points, and now a short week in what we know has got to be a pretty ticked-off Buffalo team following their loss. And so hopefully if you're looking for the Bills, you can avoid this big upset, and if you're on Tampa, maybe they're another team that's live to go and upset this Buffalo Bills team.
Well, I think you said it. Tampa really doesn't score very much. We know the Bills have an explosive offense. and can score. We know this year scoring's down. I think unders are hitting at a 61% clip. But you look at Tampa, 8 of their last 10 road games have all gone under. So they don't score a lot of points on the road. They're playing in a tough environment in Buffalo. Buffalo's going to want to get that offense untracked early in this game. They've been really slow starters. But take a look at the under again. Tampa on the road, 8 of their last 10 have plummeted under.
Giants, they're not on this list, but they almost knocked off the Bills. We saw last week another team that really, really struggles to move the football offensively. Mac Jones able to pull the upset. So despite the fact that you're not able to score, if you're able to stand up and play solid defense, you can stay in a game with Buffalo.
All right, so now we're going to look at Sunday. No early game this week, so you don't have to get up early for a game.
Next week you will. We'll be traveling
yep.
out to Germany.
Yep. for a phenomenal matchup. We're talking Dolphins-Chiefs early in the morning. What a great game on November 5th. All right, so we're going to look at Sunday football. This, to me, is one of the better games on Sunday. Jacksonville against the Steelers. Jacksonville, a very small road favorite. The Steelers, very quietly, Jay, are 4-2. They're getting a little bit healthier. They got Deontay Johnson back. They're starting to run the ball a little bit better. We know they're stout defensively. Jacksonville, 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games on the road. Jacksonville is 6-1 straight up in their last 7 games on the road. The total has gone under in 5 of Pittsburgh's last 6 games, and the total has gone under in 5 of Pittsburgh's last 6 games when playing Jacksonville. So very similar to what we saw a few weeks ago, maybe with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, kind of that low-scoring game, in the trenches. But Jacksonville, again, a lot of success playing on the road, 5-0 against the number.
Yeah, Jacksonville's been good, and it's not a Trevor Lawrence sling the ball over the place to Ridley and Kirk. They've really been doing it with controlling the ground, ETN running the ball a lot, and smart quarterback play from Lawrence. But this is a different game that they're going to have to go play here. They've been able to beat up on some of their AFC South counterparts,
right.
And now they're going to go play a Steelers team, which has really been a surprise to us. They sit 4-2, and they're really doing it with no semblance of an offense. They seem to get a defensive touchdown every week. I really
think, though, when
their offense is getting better.
Right. When you had a young receiver in Pickens, and then Freiermuth at tight end. Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson both got hurt basically at the same time. They played without those guys for a month, and for a young quarterback like Kenny Pickett to lose probably his best receiver and a tight end that he relied on heavily in the preseason and last year in the red zone, I think that really hurts that offense. But you have to remember the Steelers were kind of that vogue team in the offseason. You always look for a team that you don't expect to get a lot of Super Bowl play on and division play, and they were the team. They were kind of that sophisticated play, that hot vogue team. They're 4-2 right now. That whole division is 500 or better, and they're a little bit better than I think we thought they were.
Yeah, and I think this is a classic, road favorite, take the home dog, look for the Steelers in this spot, and see if that defense can stand up again.
Especially if the game goes to 3. It looks like it's kind of trending that way, some 2.5 juice. So I think if it goes to 3, I think there is some value with the Steelers in that game on Sunday. Let's look at another game. Eagles-Commanders. These two teams played a few weeks ago. For whatever reason, Riverboat Ron decided not to go for 2. I hated his excuse. The team was tired. You have a chance to beat the Eagles, the best team in the NFC, team that went to the Super Bowl last year, who's the favorite to go this year in the NFC. My team was tired, so I kicked it. Of course, they never got the ball back. Hurts to A.J. Brown, game over in overtime. But they get a chance at some redemption here. So you look at the Eagles right now, and, for the Eagles, the total's gone under in 7 of Washington's last 8 games at home. So in Washington's home, it turns to go under. Total has gone under in 15 of Washington's last 22 games. Philadelphia's 10-0 straight up, 10-2 straight up in their last 12 games on the road. It's the Eagles' offense against a Commander team that really struggles to protect Sam Howell. He leads the league in being sacked. The Eagles haven't played great this year, but they beat up on the Dolphins on prime time. Tough spot, I think, for the Commanders, but they're almost a touchdown underdog at home.
Yeah, and I think the Commanders should have some confidence. Obviously, they went into Philadelphia and were able to go play that overtime game when they didn't go for 2. So there's some confidence there. But again, that defense has given up over 400 yards to just about everybody they play. You talked about Howell getting sacked a lot, and I think that Eagles loss to the Jets, they were undefeated, lose to the Jets, and now come back and take care of Miami. I think that kind of rejuvenated and re-woke up this Eagles team. We know that they can run the football with probably the best offensive line in the game right now with Swift, and it's been the A.J. Brown show, and we really haven't seen Devonta Smith get involved too much in this offense. Last week against the Dolphins, it was Dallas Goedert, the tight end, that had the big game and the big situations. And so they have just so many weapons on this Eagles team that can do things to score from an offensive standpoint. And Washington has so many deficiencies on the defensive side of things that this does look like a game that the Eagles can exploit those defensive weaknesses. However, we talk about 7-point home underdog. This is the spot that you want to look for those big money line dogs. I just don't know that the Eagles, that this is the right spot, because this team has the ability to kind of take the air out of the football, have those long 13, 15 play drives, end up with the brotherly shove, the tush push, anytime they're in a 3rd and short or 4th and short situation. So Washington's really going to have to come with a big effort. And I don't think it's one of those games where you catch the Eagles sleeping either, because this Commander team just took them to overtime a couple weeks ago.
And I think when you look at the Commanders, look at their young skill position players, I think with Howell it's hard because he gets sacked so much. That offensive line has really struggled. But you look at Terry McLaurin, you look at Josh Dotson, you look at Logan Thomas, you look at the running backs they have in Robinson. They've got some talents on that team. It's just you have to protect them a bit. And they have been competitive with the Eagles over the last couple of years.
And the Eagles, talk about the trade deadline here at the end of the month of October. They're already the ones making the move,
right,
picking up Bynum from the Titans. So they go get an all-pro safety to add to that defensive unit. So the Eagles are not only looking what they're doing this week, but we can see this team's already securing themselves, looking to make that big playoff run.
They're definitely not shy about being, active going into the trade deadline. Trade deadline is, I believe, the 31st, so we'll see what happens between now and the 31st, but there could be some big names moved, including Derrick Henry, who's rumored to be out there. Maybe Buffalo, maybe Philly, two teams that have shown some interest in him before. Rams-Cowboys, which I think is a really good game. Rams come off that game where they lost against the Steelers, 2 missed field goals and a missed extra point. Brett Maher is no longer their kicker due to that. The Cowboys they come off a bye. To me, they were right there early with the Eagles and 49ers. They've dropped down somewhat now with a couple of bad losses in there. I think with the injury to Diggs, they still need some help at DB. I think they'll be active at the trade deadline. You look at Stafford and the Rams now, with that offense getting Kupp and Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, they can score some points, but against this Cowboy defense, it might be a little bit tough. Here's a couple of stats for you. The total has gone under in 9 of the Rams' last 12 games on the road. However, for the Cowboys, the total has gone over in 6 of their last 7 home games.
Yeah, and I think the bye week was a perfect week for the Cowboys to catch that bye week. Obviously, we saw them get kind of blown out by the 49ers, obviously the loss to Arizona, but able to come back and win that big Monday night game against the Chargers, then hit the bye week, get rejuvenated, fix some of the things that they think weren't clicking on offense. And I think the Micah Parsons can be a real problem for Matthew Stafford in this game. Obviously, we know Stafford's got Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp to be able to throw the football to, and when he has got time to be able to hit those guys, the Rams are a very, very dangerous team. They really were missing their running backs last week. Kyron Williams is now on the IR. He's been their kind of
Henderson
big horse.
Played great, though.
Yeah, Evans, who they went to after Kyron Williams been out, and so they had Henderson step up and Freeman as well off the practice squad, but they weren't able to just get things going. I don't think that offense was clicking on cylinders with those new running backs in there, but they got to protect Stafford in this game if they want to stay in the game. But I think this is a game that you could see CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott off the bye week potentially throw the ball around a little bit more, and maybe even Pollard coming out of the backfield could be dangerous in this spot.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup for both these teams. I still think the Rams are a good team. I think Sean McVay's done a really good job there with kind of a young team outside of a few veterans there.
Well, but they're starting to show the Rams were expected to be at the bottom of this division, kind of with the Cardinals, and we weren't expecting them to be a very, very good football team. And then they came out of the box and beat the Seahawks, and they played some good games.
They should have beat the Steelers, though. You don't miss those 2 field goals and an extra point.
Puka Nacua's come out of nowhere to look like an all-pro receiver, but they still weren't a team that was really, really high or a high power rating. So they've somewhat fallen back to earth and kind of are where we expect them to be. And this would be a big upset win for them over the Cowboy team, especially with them coming off their bye week. But they are a team that has the weapons to do that.
Right. Another game now, we're talking about an AFC team against an NFC team. I think, too, one of the better games on the board is the Cincinnati Bengals travel to play the 49ers. Two teams trending in opposite directions. Bengals, who started 0-3, we know Burrow was beat up. Last year they started 0-2. They've now won 3 straight. They're still on the bottom of the AFC North because that entire division is 500 or better. The Niners now back-to-back losses. I think what surprised me for the Niners is, I know all that talk was, Purdy's MVP, the next Montana. There was a lot of pressure on a young quarterback early in the season. But you look at that game on Monday night against the Vikings, Jay, and they had no Jefferson. Addison was hurt in that game as well. But they got to Kirk Cousins absolutely 0 times. No sacks in that game for that defense, which really kind of sets the table, I think, for everything they do offensively. They're a 5.5-point favorite. Number has gone up just a little bit. A couple of key stats here. Total has gone under in 5 of Cincinnati's last 6 games on the road. Cincinnati, however, is 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games and playing on the road against San Francisco. Yet the Niners against the number this year at home, they're 5-0 against the number at home. So their losses have really come and struggles have been on the road so far.
Yeah, and I'll talk about the Niners first and the fact that obviously they're coming off the 2 losses. They looked like all-world beaters, Super Bowl, or bust type team after their big win over the Cowboys at home. Then they travel on the road to a Cleveland Browns team that was starting P.J. Walker at quarterback with Watson being out, and the Browns are able to go ahead and steal that game. But in that game, Christian McCaffrey left hurt, Deebo Samuel left hurt, and it kind of left them.
They did miss a field goal, too.
Without the weapons. Moody missed a field goal, which, again, we saw Moody miss field goals in the Monday night game at Minnesota. But, again, Niners playing without Deebo Samuel. We saw Christian McCaffrey. We saw Ayuk have a good game. Jennings has had a solid games. But Purdy got a little bit more of that pressure, and he missed a couple of throws. And we basically saw Kittle not be a part of the offense, where we saw Kittle be a monster part of that offense in the Dallas game. So teams are doing something different to be able to control George Kittle. So, again, from matching up against Cincinnati, I think this is a breather for the Niners, but really a schedule quirk that is in monster favor to the Bengals, and the fact that the 49ers play the Monday night game, have to travel all the way back to San Francisco on short rest to play the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off their bye week, which had to be a great time for a bye week with Joe Burrow getting over the calf injury.
It does give Burrow and Higgins an opportunity to get a little bit healthy, but, we talked about Minnesota gave up no sacks to the 49ers. The one thing that Cincinnati hasn't been able to do this year is protect Burrow. So if you're of that defense that, hey, we had a bad game, we come off back-to-back losses, P.J. Walker played well against us, Kirk Cousins did. As good as Burrow is with Chase and Higgins and Mixon out of the backfield, they just can't protect him. You have to expect he's going to be under duress that entire game. I think it's going to be a tough game for Burrow. I think this number is going to go up.
I do think that, again, you talk about the Niners being able to get to Burrow. I do think that from a secondary standpoint, I do think the Niners can exploit what is a weaker Cincinnati Bengals secondary. So if there's a way for Purdy to go and redeem himself, have a big game, we'll see what Deebo Samuel's status is here, if he's going to be back in the game. But obviously we know Jamar Chase and Higgins, the Bengals do have weapons. So you talked about the over-under in this game, maybe something to look at if you think that, the Burrow is going to have a good game and can kind of exploit
I'm not sure he will, though, because
Cousins
of the pressure.
was able to do.
Right.
Cousins was able to find a lot of open receivers, find Hawkinson for a lot of big games. So he found some holes in that San Francisco secondary. This could be an over game with some big receiver games.
All right, so Sunday Night Football now. Las Vegas Raiders travel to Detroit. Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football. Lions come off a loss, really bad game against the Ravens. I thought they really played poorly on all facets of the game. The Raiders got beat by the Bears. They got beat by Tyson Bagent, a D2 quarterback out of Shepherd who had an over 100 quarterback rating. He didn't turn the ball over at all. This Raider team, who just came off back-to-back wins, we had talked about last week, they were back in the wild card kind of hunt and discussion. They played horribly that night. Josh Jacobs has really struggled. I think he's for defending rushing champ, he has the most average yards per carry since 1973. So that line's not protecting. Adams isn't getting the ball. We think Garoppolo will be back. They're almost a two-score underdog on Monday night. Tough task, I think, for the Raiders to stay on the road and go play a Detroit team coming off a loss.
Yeah, and you ask yourself, what is the Raiders' effort level after that Bear game.
It was horrible.
Because,
right.
That's a game that you're going to Chicago, you're a road favorite, and really it looked like the effort and energy wasn't there.
You're down by 3 scores.
Max Crosby disappeared from the game and wasn't much part of the game. But you talked about this Lions team, and 2 weeks ago, the people were talking about Lions in the Super Bowl, and they're the number 1 team in the NFC after we saw the Niners and Eagles lose, and they went on the road and beat Tampa and again shut them down. But then we saw the Atlanta Falcons shut down Tampa. So maybe the defense was the Lions defense wasn't all that good, and they really got exploited by Lamar Jackson. We saw Lamar Jackson have by far his best game of the season, a 44-6 blowout of the Lions. The Lions, the running game, Gibbs had a great running game. Montgomery has been out, and I still think that's a big part of that offense. It can't be all Jared Goff to Sam Laporta, Jared Goff to St. Brown or Reynolds. They have to be able to find a semblance of a running game and not a short passing game, running games like you see Gibbs having success. It's that they want to run between the tackles, play that smash mouth, Dan Campbell football of run you over. And of course, the Raiders come to town, and that should be a perfect remedy to what the Lions want to accomplish. And so this could be a big effort. And I think that when you have a coach like Dan Campbell and that disciplinarian type guy and the leadership that the Lions are, when you come off of a big loss like this to the Ravens and you somewhat get embarrassed, and now you get to go on national TV on Monday night, something the Lions have not gotten a lot.
I had said Sunday night, but you're right, it's Monday night.
A lot of chance to do. This team has not played outside of Thanksgiving Day. We don't get to see the Lions on a lot of national televised games. And so I guarantee that that's going to be mentioned in that locker room, that they want to put on a show. So this is a chance the Raiders are really going to have to stand up, because I think we're going to see a monster effort out of the Lions this week.
I mean, if they get Jimmy Garoppolo back, that'll help that offense somewhat. The Sunday night game's actually the Bears at the Chargers. Same thing. Bears are almost a 2-score underdog in this game. Tyson Bagent gets to play on national TV in this game. And I think the Chargers are probably one of the bigger disappointments in the league. A lot of hype going into the season. We know that Herbert got the big contract in the offseason. They lose Mike Williams for the year. We know that Eckler's been banged up a little bit. Defensively, though, really, really toward the bottom of the league. I think they're ranked 28th and 31st in the 2 categories defensively. Let's see what Bagent can do, but they're a big dog on Monday night against the Chargers. Sunday night.
Just when you think there's some hope for the Bears and they're going to play well, they go beat Washington, and then they get blown out the next week in their own right. And so obviously the big win over the Raiders. But this is a tough trip to LA. Obviously,
isn't it a home game for the Bears though?
They come off the loss, and
in LA,
as much as we didn't see the pressure on Bagent, he was able to have success. This is a week where he's going to see that pass rush, that Charger, that best part.
Bosa,
best part of that Chargers defense is that pass rush. So Bagent's going to be able to handle that massive pressure on him this week.
My guess is, no, I was kidding, but is that you're going to see more blue and orange in SoFi Stadium than you will blue and gold. So that's the one thing I think really hurts the Chargers, is that when they play at home in LA, it's really not a true home field advantage, because you get at least 50% or more of the opposition fans in the stadium.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, we talk about it every other week, are the Chargers playing for their head coach's job? Because at some point in time, his decision making and some of the things that he does and the losses that the Chargers suffer, this would be a catastrophic loss for the Chargers if they were to drop this game. So I think they're in a must-win situation. But the number is a big number at 8.5, and the Chargers, we see them all too often playing a lot of one-score games.
Just, you have to wonder about the Bears offensively. They ran the ball good last week against the Raiders, but Bagent didn't have a completion of over 20 yards. I think they kind of scripted it that way. DJ Moore did drop, I think, an 18-yard touchdown, but we'll see how he plays on the big stage here. Real quick, last man standing in pro, 59 contestants left, so congratulations, great job. Not even at the halfway point yet, only 59 people are left.
And the best part of this week in pro football, no bye weeks. We get to see an absolute full schedule.
After 6 teams last week.
9 morning games. It's an absolutely loaded week, so get the app, get yourself ready. Last week, October 31st is your deadline. We still have up to the $500 bonus, so get signed up today to take advantage of that big bonus. And we didn't really mention it, but the Golden Knights continue to absolutely be amazing. They're now the first team to ever go 7-0 after winning a Stanley Cup.
Did you have to mention it?
They welcome our Chicago Blackhawks on Friday afternoon for a Nevada Day matinee game to potentially go 8-0 against a team that they've already beaten this year. So again, congratulations to the Golden Knights, and congratulations to you that continue to cash your tickets like it's a free square on the bingo card has been the Golden Knights cashing tickets.
Not only congratulations to the Knights, but since we had our last week's show, Las Vegas Aces won the WNBA championship. So congratulations to the Aces as well. And we really didn't touch on the fact that the NBA is here now too. It tipped off. So you've got so many different things going on, as Jay mentioned. Great time to get the app, all these different sports. College hoops is right around the corner as well. This is arguably the busiest time of the year for our side of the counter. We know you guys get busy closer to the holidays. Great time to get the app with all these sports going on. So for Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. We'll see you guys next week.